too many instances, they don't, but through a lack of fundamental due process, people who could care for themselves with some additional support become entrapped in a conservatorship. In recent months, one conservatorship has captivated the world, revealing the deeply restrictive nature of these arrangements and just how easily they can be abused and how difficult it can be to escape. Of course, I'm talking about Britney Spears. We know Britney Spears as an undeniable music superstar. She has been and will always be a cultural icon, but we can't forget she's also a mother. She's a human being. She's worthy of dignity and respect. For the last 13 years, she has lived under a conservatorship. That arrangement was initiated out of a concern for her mental health, but as has been reported and Ms. Spears herself has said, it appears to have been commandeered by those who were supposed to have her best interests in mind, but are now alleged to have effectively held her captive and profited handsomely at the expense. The allegations are, in fact, chilling. Ms. Spears was isolated, kept away from family, friends, and her broader support network. She was financially exploited. She was spied upon, including with a listening device in her own bedroom. She was medicated against her will, including being forced to be on birth control. She was even denied access to her own children. And yet, through it all, and in the public eye, she released 4 albums, headlined a $130 million global tour, and starred in her own Las Vegas show. So she was far from being incapacitated, as people ordinarily would know it. For years, we now know, Ms. Spears tried to end her conservatorship only to have her wishes ignored by the court. Sadly, we'll hear this afternoon that Britney Spears' story is not a singular or isolated incident. The only thing that's unusual about Britney Spears' story is that people are paying attention to it. That's the only thing that makes it different from many other conservatorships around the country. In fact, there are many others whose names, whose lives, whose stories we often don't know. They've experienced, and they continue to experience, this conservatorship trap. Under state laws, conservatorships are supposed to be a protection of last resort for those who are truly incapacitated. But we're learning, and many of us have seen in our own legal experience, that frequently they're imposed with little or no notice at hearings that last only minutes and have no consideration of other options. Many people under conservatorship arrangements aren't able to hire their own lawyer and instead are left to a court-appointed lawyer. Conservatees might not fully understand how restrictive these arrangements can be, and so they may not object before it happens. Many don't realize, or perhaps they're never made aware of the fact, that these conservatorships are difficult to change in any way, let alone end. And this issue is a big deal for a lot of people. In 2016, the National Center for State Courts estimated that across the United States, there were more than 1.3 million adults and at least $50 billion in assets under conservatorship. In my own state of Connecticut, there are about 20,000 conservatorships right now. There are about 4,000 new ones every year. These numbers likely only represent a snapshot, since most states don't have a centralized data collection system on conservatorships, and the data that they do collect varies from state to state. This afternoon, we're going to hear from witnesses who will tell us about their experience living with and fighting against conservatorships. They'll also tell us about how there are other options, better alternatives to these legal straitjackets. And they may be available to people who need that kind of extra support but can do without a conservatorship. One alternative that is gaining increased prominence is supported decision-making. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses about that alternative and others, particularly when they've had some success. Finally, let me just say Ms. Spears' next public hearing in her own conservatorship battle is literally tomorrow. While she continues to fight to make her own decisions and to live her own life, we can and we must fight for reforms in these legal straitjackets, arrangements that are potentially abusive and certainly a disservice to many people that are under them. And that's why I'm so pleased that the ranking member and I could come together to hold this hearing. I hope we can use this afternoon to have a productive discussion, find common ground, to identify ways to promote transparency, accountability, and overall reform of the current conservatorship system. And let me just pose a couple of initial thoughts to get your reactions to them. First, it's clear we need to strengthen the state systems to ensure alternatives to this kind of legal straitjacket and make sure they're considered first, make sure civil rights are protected, and where a conservatorship is imposed, that it is effectively overseen and supervised to avoid abuse. Second, federal agencies, including the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Justice, can promote the sharing of information and best practices across jurisdictional lines, as well as improve data collection. I know that our colleagues, Senator Casey and Warren, have begun considering that data issue. Third, we need to consider strengthening federal enforcement. The Department of Justice Civil Rights Division already has a disability rights section, but it has not historically focused on deprivation of rights and abuses in conservatorships. Maybe we need that kind of effective oversight and intervention. The scale and scope of abuses that we're seeing now demand a response. And those countless people who are victims of abuse because of conservatorships need protection. I look forward to hearing from you and working with my colleagues as we explore these alternatives. And I want to take a moment to extend a particular welcome today to Nick Klaus, who's here to testify about his own experience. We welcome you here. You're living as a subject of a conservatorship, and your fight to have your rights restored are an example of courage, and we welcome your, again, demonstrating that courage to share your story with us today. Thank you very much for being here, and I'll now turn to the ranking member, Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and let me start by thanking you for holding this hearing. I think this is an